Welcome to our next video on the endocrine system. In this video, we're going to continue our examination of the pituitary gland and hopefully get onto the thyroid gland, where we left off. The pituitary gland is attached to the hypothalamus by the infundibulum, which is made up of this hypothalamic hyphyseal tract. Axons from a couple nuclei are going to go down that tract and control the posterior pituitary. Now, the anterior pituitary is also controlled by the hypothalamus. It is going to have neurons in the hypothalamus produce tropic hormones that are released into this plexus of blood vessels. Now, the tropic hormones go to the anterior pituitary, and they cause it to make 6 hormones that all have tropic effects. Hormones we've looked at for the anterior pituitary already are growth hormone and prolactin. Hormone deals with cell metabolism and protein synthesis. Prolactin causes you to make milk. The other 4 hormones are tropic only. So these two have endocrine targets, which we didn't really talk about, but they have non-endocrine targets. The other 4, which are all made by these blue basophils, all are tropic hormones that have other endocrine targets. First of those tropic hormones is thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH. This causes the production of thyroid hormone. So very well-named hormone. Thyroid stimulating, it stimulates the thyroid gland. The second hormone is adrenal cortical tropic hormone. So adrenal gland, cortical, cortex. So it stimulates the adrenal cortex. And it causes the production of steroid hormones. So the adrenal cortex makes 5 of the 6 steroid hormones, and ACTH stimulates it. It makes mostly cortisol. Now, if it's completely absent, it can have a role in not making enough aldosterone, which causes you to retain water and sodium. But there's so many other factors that cause aldosterone's reabsorption that you normally don't have, this leading to diabetes insipidus, which is the other diabetes. Now, if you make too much ACTH, it can cause too much sex hormones. The adrenal cortex makes sex hormones. So too much, get facial hair. And the hair on their arms and legs also darkens because they're making testosterone and more than normal. For men, actually start to develop breasts and get subcutaneous adipose. Luteinizing hormone is the next one. And this one causes ovulation in women. It is a very fascinating feedback mechanism, and it causes testosterone production in men. So, luteinizing hormone causes ovulation in women and testosterone production in men. And that's all we're going to talk about luteinizing hormone. We'll talk more when we get to the reproductive system. And lastly, follicle stimulating hormone was first observed to cause ovarian follicles to develop. It's a tropic hormone because those follicles produce the hormone estrogen. Now, in men, it causes sperm production. Now, luteinizing hormone is a tropic hormone in men because it makes testosterone, and the testosterone will also help produce the sperm. But focus on luteinizing hormone, ovulation in women, sperm production in men, follicle stimulating hormone, stimulates the follicles in women, which produces estrogen, and sperm production in men. So the posterior pituitary. These are neurohormones because you have these 2 nuclei in the hypothalamus, and they have their axon tracts going down to the posterior pituitary, where they're releasing their hormones into the blood. There are 2 hormones. The first one is oxytocin. This causes uterine contractions during labor. This is the other positive feedback loop. It also causes milk ejection. So prolactin makes oxytocin releases. It promotes bonding. Women actually release more oxytocin when they're stressed than testosterone. So it promotes bonding in women. And it also causes cervical contractions. Now, antidiuretic hormone, that causes water retention. So you're home alone, you're eating a lot of potato chips, your blood becomes really salty, and the hypothalamus goes, I don't like this. So what's going to happen is you make antidiuretic hormone. It causes water retention directly, and that evens out the saltiness. So that's why if you eat a lot of salt, you'll start to swell up because you're making more antidiuretic hormone. Its other name was vasopressin, and vasopressin causes constriction of blood vessels, which increases blood pressure. So it helps increase blood pressure this way. You'll learn physiology. Just retaining water is going to increase blood pressure as well. If there's a pituitary tumor in the posterior pituitary, you might not make antidiuretic hormone. So that leads to a very interesting disease. It's called diabetes insipidus, the other diabetes. Diabetes is just you're urinating a lot. So what you guys know as diabetes is really diabetes mellitus, type 1 and type 2. Diabetes insipidus, you produce large amounts of urine, but it doesn't have sugar in it. You're just not making antidiuretic hormone. Now, in a lot of the physiology textbooks, there's a story in ancient Greece, they knew about this, that the medical school intern at Epidaurus or at Kos, which were the two big medical sanctuaries, would have to taste the urine to see if it tasted sweet, and then they knew it was diabetes mellitus, and they would treat it with diet. Or if it didn't, diabetes insipidus, they just have them drink more. That story's a load of hogwash. Glucose does not taste sweet, and if you smell the urine of a diabetic patient that has diabetes mellitus, you smell acetone. That's all they had to do. So no one was drinking urine. So when your physiology teacher tells you that story, you'll know it's hogwash. Let's see what you understood. The posterior pituitary. It is resembling nervous tissue, has eosinophils. I've never heard of that one yet. Notice I said yet, so that's not the answer. Has basophils. Those are the blue anterior ones, so it has to be A. Now, do you remember how the posterior pituitary is attached? I learned pituitary stalk, but I had a really fancy name. What was it called? It's called the infundibulum. And remember, that's just white matter tracts of neurons coming from the hypothalamus going down to the posterior pituitary, where the anterior pituitary has basophils and acidophils and chromophobes. Which hormone causes the production of steroid hormones? Well, steroid hormones, they're made in the cortex of the adrenal gland. So it must be adrenal corticotropic hormone, not stimulating hormone. So tropic. Next question. Which hormone causes the production of sperm? It's luteinizing hormone. And do you remember what it causes in women? It causes ovulation. I have no idea why my pen keeps doing that. If someone wants to increase muscle mass, which hormone are they going to take? Barry Bonds. Well, prolactin's milk. That stimulates the thyroid. That'll actually burn a little bit of muscle mass, so no. Follicle stimulating hormone, no. Growth hormone, it increases protein synthesis. This table's in your lab book. It has the tropic hormones. I didn't put prolactin on here. It has their abbreviation because they're commonly just abbreviated. What makes them, their target organ, and their effect. I suggest for all of these hormones, you make a table like this. We don't need to know what its target is. We need to know the hormone name, production, and the tropic effect, or just general effect. So, thank you for watching the second video on the pituitary gland. I hope to hear you next time when we talk about the other endocrine organs. Thank you.